10 powerful signs God has chosen you. In a world that constantly challenges our sense of identity and purpose, finding meaning can feel like a never-ending quest. But throughout history, God has been calling people, unlikely heroes, flawed human beings, and those who least expected it, to fulfill His divine will. From Moses to Mary, David to Deborah, we see examples of people chosen by God, each of whom received a mission that shaped the course of history. The Bible gives us insights into what it means to be chosen by God. And while each journey is unique, there are some clear signs that God might be calling you to. Let's delve into these 10 signs, deeply rooted in the teachings of the Bible, to explore how God calls, equips, and empowers His chosen ones. Sign number 1, a sense of divine calling. The first sign that you are chosen by God is an undeniable sense of calling, a deep and unshakable conviction that you are here for a purpose beyond your own understanding. The prophet Jeremiah is an incredible example of this. In Jeremiah 1:5, God tells him, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." Imagine being told that before you even took your first breath, God had a plan for you. This is what it means to have a divine calling. It's not something you choose, it's something that chooses you. Maybe you felt this calling in the quiet moments of your life, a persistent feeling that you are meant to serve, to give, to love, or to lead in ways that don't quite make sense to others. This sense of purpose can be exhilarating and terrifying all at once, just as it was for Jeremiah, who doubted his worthiness. But God assured him that He would be with him every step of the way. If you've ever experienced to make a difference in ways that align with God's teachings, or if you felt an urging to pursue a path that brings you closer to Him, this could be a powerful sign that God has chosen you. Remember, God's calling often defies our own understanding, but leads us toward a life that blesses others and glorifies Him. Reflection. If you're wondering if this divine calling applies to you, take a moment to pray. Ask God to reveal His purpose in your life. Listen closely and trust that even if you can't see the full picture now, He is guiding you step by step. Sign number 2, overcoming impossible odds. Another strong indicator that you're chosen by God is when you find yourself overcoming impossible odds, not by your own strength, but by a power beyond what you could imagine. The Bible is filled with stories of people who were called to step out in faith, often into situations that seemed hopeless. Consider the story of David and Goliath. David, a young shepherd, faced the Philistine giant. Goliath, a warrior much stronger and more experienced than he was. By human standards, David should have been defeated, but he had something much greater on his side: God. In 1 Samuel 17:47, David boldly proclaims, "All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's." David knew he was chosen for this moment, not because of his own strength, but because God had ordained it. If you've ever been faced with a challenge that seemed insurmountable, and yet somehow, through grace and divine intervention, you prevailed, take this as a sign. God often chooses us and proves His power by leading us through trials we could never conquer alone. These moments strengthen our faith and show us that we are part of something greater. Reflection. Ask yourself, has there been a time in your life when you faced a giant and against all odds overcame it? These moments aren't accidental. They are divine reminders that God is at work within you, empowering you to fulfill the purpose He has for you. Sign number 3, a deepening relationship with God. Being chosen by God often leads to a yearning for a closer relationship with Him. Moses, for instance, experienced an evolving relationship with God, which began at the burning bush, Exodus 3, and grew throughout his life as he led the Israelites to freedom. Despite Moses' initial hesitation, and feelings of inadequacy, his relationship with God deepened with each step of obedience. If you felt an increased desire to read God's Word, spend time in prayer, and seek His presence, this could be a sign that God is drawing you near. Being chosen isn't about a single moment, it's about a journey. And as you walk with God, your relationship with Him transforms, bringing a profound sense of peace, joy, and purpose. Reflection. God desires a relationship with each of us. Take time to cultivate this connection, trusting that through every prayer, worship, and act of faith, you are stepping closer to the destiny He has prepared for you. Sign number 4, an unexplainable peace amidst challenges. When God has chosen you, there is often an unexplainable peace that sustains you even in the most difficult situations. This peace doesn't mean that life becomes easy or that challenges disappear. Rather, it's a deep assurance that despite everything, God is in control. Philippians 4 verse 7 describes it beautifully as the peace of God, which transcends all understanding. The story of Jesus calming the storm in Mark 4:35-41 provides a profound illustration of this peace. As Jesus and his disciples crossed the Sea of Galilee, a violent storm arose, and the disciples, despite being experienced fishermen, were terrified. But Jesus, who was asleep in the boat, remained calm. When the disciples woke him in fear, he simply rebuked the wind and calmed the storm, asking them, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" This unshakable peace is a hallmark of God's presence in the lives of His chosen. It's a reminder that no matter how turbulent life becomes, He is with us, guiding us through every wave and storm. Reflection. If you've experienced moments of peace that defy your circumstances, times when you felt calm even as life's storms raged, this may be God's reassurance that He has chosen and is watching over you. Trust in His presence and remember that He is the anchor in every storm. Sign number 5, a passion for serving others. One of the clearest signs that you are chosen by God is a deep and selfless desire to serve others. Jesus Himself exemplified this in His earthly ministry, stating in Matthew 20 verse 28, "The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve." When God chooses someone, He often plants within them a heart that aches for the broken, a spirit that rejoices in lifting others, and a willingness to give even when there's little to spare. Consider the story of Ruth, who chose to stay with her mother-in-law, Naomi, even after the loss of her husband. Ruth's dedication wasn't driven by obligation, but by love and a sense of purpose. Her loyalty and kindness were later honored by God as she became part of the lineage of King David and ultimately of Jesus Himself. If you feel a calling to serve, to love, and to give without expecting anything in return, this could be God's way of using you to reflect His love to others. Serving others is one of the greatest honors God bestows upon His chosen, transforming lives in ways we may never fully realize. Reflection. Ask yourself, do you feel an inner urge to help, to serve, or to bless those around you? If so, recognize this as a divine calling. God often uses our acts of service as vessels to show His love, guiding us toward a purpose that touches lives and builds His kingdom. Sign number 6, receiving wisdom and insight beyond your own. Another powerful indication of being chosen by God is when you receive wisdom or insight that goes beyond human understanding. The Bible tells us that Solomon was chosen by God to be king, and when he asked for wisdom rather than riches or power, God granted it abundantly. In 1 Kings 3 verse 12, God says, "I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be." This wisdom often appears when you're faced with difficult decisions or moments of uncertainty, and somehow you know the right course of action, even if it defies conventional logic. This divine insight isn't based on intellect alone. It's a gift from God to those He has chosen, equipping them to make choices that align with His will. Reflection. If you've ever found yourself with sudden clarity, a sense of direction, or an understanding that seems to come from beyond, this may be God's wisdom at work in you. Pray for discernment and seek His guidance, trusting that He will continue to provide you with the insight you need. A journey of transformation. One of the unmistakable signs that God has chosen you is a journey of transformation, changing you from the inside out. The Apostle Paul is a testament to this. Once a fierce persecutor of Christians, Paul experienced a radical transformation after encountering Jesus on the road to Damascus. His life took a 180-degree turn, and he became one of the most influential figures in spreading the gospel. Transformation is at the heart of God's work in us. As it says in 2 Corinthians 5:17, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone, the new is here." God doesn't choose the perfect. He perfects the chosen. This journey might involve shedding old habits, embracing forgiveness, learning humility, or discovering courage. It is a lifelong process, and each step brings you closer to who God has created you to be. Reflection. If you felt God working within you, transforming your heart, reshaping your character, or leading you away from old patterns, recognize this as His hand guiding you toward your purpose. Embrace this transformation, for it's a sign that God is molding you to fulfill His calling. Sign number 8, experiencing God's protection and provision. Being chosen by God often means experiencing His protection and provision in ways that defy explanation. Throughout the Bible, we see stories of God's chosen ones being protected from harm and provided for in miraculous ways. Take Elijah, for example, who was fed by ravens during a drought, 1 Kings 17:4-6, and later provided with food by a widow whose supplies never ran out. This divine protection doesn't mean a life free from hardship, but it does mean that God is with you, shielding you in ways that are sometimes unseen. Many chosen people recount moments when they were spared from danger or received provision just when they needed it most. These are not coincidences, they are signs of God's presence and care. Reflection. If you've experienced moments when you were protected, rescued, or provided for in ways you couldn't explain, it could be God affirming that you are chosen. Remember, He watches over those He calls, guiding and sustaining them every step of the way. Sign number 9, a willingness to step out in faith. God often calls His chosen to step into the unknown, requiring a level of faith that might seem daunting. Abraham was called to leave his home and journey to an unknown land, relying solely on God's promise. Hebrews 11:8 reminds us, by faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. This willingness to trust and follow God, even when the destination is unclear, is a hallmark of being chosen. The journey may be uncertain, but the call is clear. God's chosen are often led to take steps of faith that others might shy away from, not because they lack fear, but because their trust in God is greater than their fear. Reflection. If you felt called to step out in faith, to pursue a path that requires trust in God over certainty, consider this as a sign of being chosen. It's not always easy, but God promises to walk beside you, guiding you toward His purpose. Sign number 10, an enduring hope and perseverance. The final sign that you're chosen by God is an enduring hope and perseverance. Those who are chosen often face trials, but they possess a resilience that sustains them. The Apostle Paul spoke of this perseverance, writing in Romans 5:3-4, "We also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope." This hope is a quiet confidence, a belief that God will fulfill His promises. It is not born from circumstance, but from faith. Whether in seasons of abundance or scarcity, God's chosen hold on to hope, knowing that He is faithful. If you found strength to endure hardships with hope, Even when everything around you seems bleak, know that this resilience is a sign of God's work within you. He gives strength to his chosen, enabling them to persevere and fulfill their calling. Conclusion. As we reflect on these 10 signs, remember that being chosen by God doesn't mean a life without challenges. In fact, it often brings its own unique trials. But through each one, God equips, sustains, and guides us, drawing us ever closer to him. Whether you feel a divine calling, experience unexplainable peace, or sense his hand protecting you, trust that God has a purpose for your life. He calls each of us not only to serve him, but to be a testament of his love, grace, and power. You are chosen, and with that calling comes the assurance that he will be with you every step of the way.